Hi, everybody. Welcome to Worlds Collide, the podcast where I talk to people who moved abroad. I am your host, Victoria. And before we start, I want to do a quick shout out to another podcast. It's called Taiwanica. If you're a regular listener, maybe you remember Eric from the episode where we talked about moving to Japan, Taiwan, and then back to the United States. Well, this is exactly his and his wife's podcast. She's from Taiwan. And so their podcast is so good. Seriously, it's so funny and also informative at the same time. And I was binging it last week. So the two of them, they talk about cultural, emotional, and life experiences between the US and Taiwan. And they have all different kinds of topics. And for example, my favorite episode that I listened to last week was the one where they compare shopping in the US versus Taiwan. And I mean, they also have like parenting, mindfulness, like more like self-help topics, but it's really informative and they have such a good conversation flow. So it's really nice to listen to. Definitely check it out. I can highly recommend it. It's called Taiwanica and it's available wherever you listen to podcasts. And also, if you want to see their pretty faces, you can check them out on YouTube. Yeah. I love them. I gave them also a 5-star rating last week on Apple Podcasts. And now I do a quick introduction to today's episode. My guest is Jennifer. She's originally from the United States and she lives now in Sicily in Italy. And she moved there later in life. So yeah, we talk about her whole background, what made her move there and why she chose Italy. And we also talk about her business where she helps other Americans move to Italy. So if you are interested in that, maybe you also want to find your roots, then definitely listen to this episode. It's really informative and it's a really good story. Here it is, Jennifer. Thank you for being on my podcast today. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for having me today.
Of course. First, I want to know, where are you from?
So I'm originally from St. Louis, but I left the Midwest of the United States about 7 years ago, and I first moved to Shanghai, China.
Oh,
And yes, I left Shanghai in December of 2020 after a year of COVID. I had had enough
right.
of that and moved to Spain and settled in Barcelona for a few months with my partner who is still living there. And
Okay.
I then decided I wanted to pursue my Italian citizenship. So I returned to the town that my great grandparents had emigrated from over 100 years ago. And so 3 years on, I am still here and I love it. I'm living a big Italian life now.
Okay, so you are in Italy, and where in Italy?
I am just outside of Palermo in Sicily, so down
Okay.
on the island where the weather is beautiful. Today we had gorgeous, gorgeous sunny skies, 20-degree weather in February, I think, right?
Yes.
So very different from my old days in the Midwest in the US where it
Right.
should be snowy right now.
Right, and gray and not so nice. And so you also live by the beach?
I do. I can
Oh,
see the
nice.
beach from my house, so I'm about a 10-minute walk to the beach, which
That
is a
sounds so
dream come
nice.
true.
Yeah. And and you said your great grandparents moved to the US? Or
Yes, my great grandparents were part of that first big immigration wave in the late 1800s, early
mm-hmm.
1900s.
Okay.
Sicily had unified, and so the towns were just very poor. My family were fishermen, and they
Okay.
were looking for better opportunity, and so
Yeah.
they found their way to the U.S. And that
Okay.
is where I was born and raised. And then I made the move when I was about 45 to move abroad.
Oh, okay. So you were already a little bit older, but did you know like all your life that part of your family is from Italy?
I did. So, I grew up eating lasagna for Thanksgiving, where,
Yeah.
most other American families are having their big turkey and mashed potatoes. And we were eating lasagna and caponata and
Uh-huh.
all of these delicious Italian treats. So we were always
Okay.
kind of the odd family.
Okay. So, and then your thought of moving abroad, was it then just like something that was always in the back of your mind, or was it just the COVID thing and then you just decided really quick and you did it then?
No. So it was actually in 2016 when the politics in the US had just
Oh,
become really crazy,
yeah.
and I was going through a divorce at that same time.
Mm-hmm.
My children had grown up. They had just finished university, and so it just seemed like a good opportunity, and my
Sure.
goal was not to live abroad forever, but just to take a year. So kind of a
Mm-hmm.
reverse gap year. I was going to take a year
Sure.
off work and travel, and China looked like a great place to go to teach English. And so my intention was just go to China, teach English for a year. I ended up
Mm-hmm.
staying for 3 years,
Ah,
and I
okay.
was and I was teaching business management, and I loved it. But then with COVID, it just became really difficult to live in China as an American.
Mm. Sure, because the visa called you back, or
No, it was becoming difficult because of a lot of the political rhetoric between
right,
our former President Trump
right.
and Xi Jinping. They were
Mm-hmm.
kind of in this tit for tat of, making these nasty comments about each other. And,
Yeah.
most mainland Chinese have limited access to the internet. And so,
Mm-hmm.
the information they were getting was, Americans are bad. The Americans brought this disease,
Right.
and it,
Oh,
it just
okay.
it just became a difficult place to live. So
Right, right, and
my
also,
part,
like, it's very obvious that you are not Chinese.
I am not
So,
Chinese. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
look Chinese.
No.
Yeah. So it,
No.
it was just, I was fired from my job because I was an American. Then
Oh,
we
okay,
were,
I see.
we were kicked out of our apartment because I was American. And so
Mhm.
it just
Oh,
became more and more
wow.
difficult to live. So we just felt like, at that point, my partner is Spanish. And so we had the
Uh-huh.
opportunity to move back to Spain. And so we just jumped at that opportunity.
Okay,
And that led me then in 2021 to decide to pursue my Italian citizenship.
right. And so I just had another guest with the same background stories that you. So you can, if you can prove
Oh,
that you are originally from Italy, you get the citizenship, right?
correct. And so, yes, so in the process of getting my citizenship, I've always been an entrepreneur. And
Uh-huh.
so I've always had businesses, and the opportunity presented itself to start a company to help people like me regain our citizenship. And
Right.
so, it's unfortunately not as easy as just, showing up with my 23andMe DNA test
Uh-huh.
saying, well, I'm Italian, give me my
Yeah, you need
passport.
paperwork.
And
Or like,
you need a lot of paperwork. Yes.
yes, and do you need the original papers?
No, so you need certified copies. You need fresh, new copies of the
Mm-hmm.
paperwork, which can sometimes be difficult because people moved around. People Americanized their names. Giuseppe became Joe, and so we're looking
Right.
for all of these documents, not knowing sometimes that somebody that we knew as Matthew, his real name was Matteo.
Right.
So it's sometimes a bit of a scavenger hunt to try to find all of these
Right.
documents, and
Right.
then to comply with all the government rules. The documents have to be
Okay.
prepared in a very exact way. We have to make a lot of corrections to these names, which I'm going through right now. I'm helping my daughter become a citizen, and so we're having to
Mm-hmm.
correct some of the names that were not corrected before, so
Mm-hmm.
that she can go through the process. So it's a lot, but it is definitely one of the best pathways to be able to live and work in the EU. And it
Ah,
gives me
yeah.
access not just to Italy, but like I said, my partner lives
Oh,
in Spain, so I live part time there. but we can travel. I'm no longer limited to 90 days. I get to pay taxes. I'm so excited
Sure.
by
Yeah.
that. I get to vote now for all of, for the Italian government, which I'm not sure I love any
Okay.
more than
Yeah.
the American government, but
Yeah.
it,
Exactly. It's bad everywhere at the
it's
moment.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's a new kind of chaos.
Yeah. But can I ask you, how did you find your paperwork from your ancestors? I mean, I just imagine you're looking at like 200-year-old papers that are
Yeah.
somewhere, who knows where.
Yeah, so what I did is I started working backwards. So I started with my birth certificate. And obviously, I knew who my parents were. So I was able to get their birth certificates and their marriage
Uh-huh.
records. That had my grandparents' names on it. From there, that's where it got a little more confusing because, my great grandparents, when they came to the US, they had Americanized their names. And so we had to start looking for, we're looking for Giuseppe. Sometimes we're looking for Joe. Sometimes we're looking for Giuseppe that's misspelled.
Right.
160 years worth of documents. A lot of things change. It took us days to figure out where my grandparents actually were married.
Mhm.
So we just started calling around every different vital records office in like a 3-hour radius looking for this elusive marriage certificate.
And that was in Italy you had to call around or in the
No,
US?
so this was in the US. And then when it got to Italy, we had to start finding birth records from my great grandparents.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, my mom knew that her grandparents, my great grandparents, were from Sicily, but she had no idea what city. And
Right.
Italy's records are not centralized. So they're held at over 8,000 different towns. So So, at that point, I engaged the help of a professional genealogist to do some
Okay.
research for me. And they ended up finding out that my grandparents were from this beautiful beach town about 30 minutes outside of Palermo. And, so we collected the documents, we got them all prepared correctly. I came for a visit and just absolutely fell in love with this place.
Hmm.
And, but at that point I was going back and forth to China, still at that point collecting
Ah,
those
okay.
documents. Then,
Yeah.
then we had that year where we couldn't leave China. So everything
Oh
just
God.
sat on hold at that point. So everything just stopped for the year of 2020.
Right.
And then in 2021, that's when I made this big jump and said, you know what, I'm moving there. I mean, my great grandparents came from a gorgeous, gorgeous town. I'm surrounded by mountains. I overlook the sea. This is paradise. This is where I want to be.
Yeah. And
And
probably that 1 year stuck in China where you're not allowed to go out was also like, I don't know, probably
oh,
like you wanted to break free of from that.
yes, yes. I needed fresh air. I was living in Shanghai. It was 24 million people, one of the largest cities on earth. Fantastic 24-hour city. Everything is just an app away. You want food, you want liquor, you want, a car, anything. You could
Uh-huh.
just, pop on an app and get it. But for a year, I was living basically in solitude.
Right.
And so, I had time to research. I had a lot of time to take up all those hobbies that I had not been, nurturing for many years.
Hmm.
And so that kind of helped slow the pace of my life from that big 24 million person city and prepare me for living in a town now in Sicily on the beach of 12,000 people. So big decrease in
Big,
population.
big change. So how was that change for you?
It was night and day. There were times where it gets frustrating because, here in Italy, I always equate it to living, essentially in a couple of different centuries.
Yeah.
Still very traditional. There's a truck that drives down the street with a man on a big bullhorn. I have
Uh-huh.
fruits and vegetables today. Today I have zucchini and strawberries
Uh-huh.
um, but then there's other things that are as easy as China where I can just scan an app. I can hop on
Right.
an app and get something taken care of. So I get kind of the best of both worlds, really.
Hmm. It sounds very picturesque with the with the truck.
Oh, it is. It's so cute. I love when, the Nonas, because the town I live in, most buildings are about 4 stories tall and
Uh-huh.
they don't have elevators. And so you
Yeah.
see the Nonas and they have a string with a basket and they're dropping the basket down with the money in it and they're yelling
Ah,
over,
yeah.
you know, I want oranges. Give me 6 oranges. I'm sending down a couple of dollars. I'm sending a couple of euros down, and it's so cute to watch.
Oh, wow.
It's a different world that I could never imagine in my Midwest suburban life.
Uh-huh.
This just doesn't exist, and it's something out of a movie, really.
Right. It does, it sounds like it. And did you get used to the not 24 hours convenience, especially with the siesta that you have now?
Oh, that I'm still, 3 years in, and I'm still working on that. So my life and my town is very active first thing in the morning, and then the middle of the afternoon at lunchtime, everything shuts down from about 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and
Such a
there's
long time,
no one on the
actually.
street. Yeah, yeah, the Sicilians like their naps, I
I know,
think.
but I mean, I understand naps, but it's a very long nap, you know.
It's a very long nap. Yeah. And then everything at 5 o'clock, the gates on the businesses roll back up and boom, we're back in business until
Uh-huh.
midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's really funny because I'm still trying to adjust because I work both local hours in Sicily, but I also still work with my clients in the US. So in the
Right.
mornings,
Hmm.
I do my local work. That afternoon is kind of coming in handy because then I can kind of take a little break, work on some quiet projects, and then in the evening, get back and start working with my American clients.
Right. I mean, I saw your post boxes in Denver, Colorado.
Yes, yes, that is where my business partner lives, and so she actually handles all of the sort of formalities of the company.
Okay, so you work with the US or with her and
Yes, with her in the U.S., and then we have a staff of 4 in the U.S. Plus, we have all of our clients are coming from either the U.S. or Canada. So it's important for me to be available, during the hours where they're awake.
okay, so let me ask. So they reach out to them and
They
then you
re
finalize everything, and then
Yeah.
once they come, you kind of greet them and have somebody more local in Italy once they
Yes.
arrive.
Yes. So my partner and my staff in the US, they'll prepare all of those documents. They'll research and get all of the documents from the US. And then if somebody decides they don't want to wait at the consulate to apply for their citizenship recognition, because applying through the consulate could take 4, 5, 6 years, or in the case of New
Mm-hmm.
York, 10 plus years.
Oh
Some
my
people,
God.
yeah, some people will decide, you know what, I'm ready to get on with my Italian life and live la dolce vita. So
Yeah.
they then will transfer over to me. And so I make arrangements. So I'm a bit relocation specialist. I'm a bit, sort of the entertainment director. I arrange all of their
Mm-hmm.
housing. I take them to all of the
Okay.
appointments and do all the translations from Italian to English when they're dealing with the government
Sure.
offices. Immigration, for example, today we were trying to get one document signed by an immigration officer, and it took us 3 offices. And so, I'm
Mhm.
dealing with different police, different employees of different towns, trying to get something done. And, sometimes it goes really smooth, and other times it's Italian bureaucracy at its very best. And,
Oh, I imagine
and
it takes a long time.
yeah, so we're going back tomorrow. We're going to try to get this paper signed tomorrow. We're going to
Okay,
try
well,
it
good
again.
luck. Yeah.
Thanks. I need it. I need it. I need all the luck.
Do you have the patience? I mean, I think I would be very aroused by it or very annoyed by it, and then, but it
Yeah.
doesn't help you.
No, no. So, it's really hard for me because I'm very, I tend to be a very anxious person, and, I can immediately sort of turn into that Karen of like, get me the manager,
Oh
and so
no.
here it's great because I
Yeah.
don't know how to do that in Italian.
Okay.
I only know how to stick to, my basic script in Italian when dealing
Right.
with the officials. So I have to really kind of temper my clients' American anxieties and, pacify the Italian government bureaucrat in front of me. And so it's definitely a test all my skills at once.
Okay. Do your clients then usually fly in somewhere that is close to you, or do you travel, let's say, to Milan or Rome or?
No, no, we work primarily around Palermo. So
Ah,
we
yeah.
we work in Western Sicily. So everybody flies
Okay.
into the Palermo airport, and then once they arrive, they're going to be living here for 6+ months. About 50% of my clients that work with us end up staying in Italy and living in Italy full time. And then the
Mm-hmm.
other 50% are kind of a split. Some of them move somewhere else in northern Italy. Some go to Spain, seems to be really popular lately. Um,
Okay.
and then a few of them do return back to the US, but then take extended time, to slow travel in Europe now that they have the passport. They,
Sure. So they just
they,
take that opportunity.
yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it really kind of depends on what their goals are and what their family life, their professional life is on what they do with it. But 50% of them end up staying and living here in Italy, which is, I think, just really wonderful. So we're working on kind of a project to create a little America. Instead of having a little
Yeah.
Italy, we're going to have a little America.
Oh yeah, sure. Sure. Is the population in Italy usually declining?
Yes, the population is declining. We have definitely a population decline, and so that's a big concern. So my partner and I kind of joke that, we're two women on a mission to repopulate Italy. There's Yeah, the understanding from statistical standpoints is there are over 60 million Italian descendants living outside of Italy. And within Italy, there are 60 million citizens. So there is an entire second Italy outside. And, so our goal is
Ah,
to try to bring as many people
yeah.
back that would really like to.
Yeah, because I know in Germany it's the same. Like when I left Germany 10 years ago, the population was something around 83 million. And I just checked the other day, it's 80 million
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And I
So
think,
a lot of people are moving away. So I just imagine it's the same for the rest of the countries in Europe. Not the rest, but
quite a few,
a
quite
whole
a
lot of
few.
bunch.
Yeah, quite
Yeah.
a few. And I think, one of the bright sides of COVID, I think, was the ability to smart work for so many people that we no
Yeah.
longer are chained to these desks and an office. So
Yeah.
the people that have had the opportunity, and especially younger people, it's always been, for 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of Americans desire to retire in Europe. This is sort of the dream, to come live in Spain, live in the south of France, live in Italy for retirement. But now, post-COVID, so many younger people are working online, so they have that opportunity that they can
Mhm.
move abroad. And, whether it's to permanently relocate to one location, or it's, 3 months in Spain, 3 months in Germany, 3 months in
Yeah.
Amsterdam kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
This, especially for my clients and for other Italian Americans, this is that passport that allows them to do that. They now have
Yeah.
27 new
Mhm.
countries they can choose from.
They can choose from. That's true. Yes. So, what is the name of your company?
My company is called Italian Citizenship Concierge. And so we are not just a citizenship company, but we're a relocation company. So the citizenship is the pathway to be able to relocate. And so we provide a lot of extra services beyond just getting your passport. We really want to help our clients assimilate, to learn the language, to learn to cook the food, eat from our soil, and just have that La Dolce Vita lifestyle, to have that movie lifestyle that they can have. And for many of them, they keep that American job. So they have a nice income. And so they can cut back on their hours. I was just talking to a client of mine, and she said, I've decided not to go back to work because we've cut our living cost in half. So we can afford now to live just on my husband's
Mm-hmm.
salary, and I don't need to work anymore. So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of like, oh, yes, you get it. This is it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're exactly, that's exactly what we want to provide is that opportunity.
Yeah, I make sure I will put this info in the show notes, so to the listeners they can just easily find the website for it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no
it's,
worries.
no, I mean, I think it's just another opportunity, right? There's so many visas out there for people. There's, Spanish citizenship pathways for people, of Polish descent, of German descent. There's different ways.
Mhm.
And so this is just one of the many ways.
Yeah. So can I ask if the local people, what do they think of the Americans who come in with their American income?
So, so the first thing they think, in fact, this came up today when I was meeting with one of the police officers. He said,
Uh-huh.
why are all of you Americans moving here? He said, we all want to move to America. I said, yes, but in America, yes, we make a lot of money. We, make a nice income, but we have no time to spend our money on anything that we enjoy. We have no vacation time. Our vacations are so limited. So we have this money, but it's going to pay for expensive houses and expensive cars. Food is expensive. We want to come back and we want to enjoy our lives. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're a little bit confused, more than anything. But for the most part, the Sicilians, especially where I work, they're really excited to have the Americans here. It's somebody new. It's somebody fascinating, especially coming to these small towns.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a town of 12,000, everybody knows everybody. Everybody's related.
Right.
Somebody's a cousin of
Right.
somebody else. So all of a sudden you have somebody new and they're like, oh, who are you? Tell me about you. Where have you come from? And
Yeah.
they want to hear all about it.
And what about you? Did you find any long lost cousins?
I have actually. It's really funny. So, I've done a bit of my genealogy research, but then a
Uh-huh.
couple years ago, I was back home and I did a DNA test, and that really opened up, and I was able to find a couple of cousins. And so I have one really good cousin that we work out together. We take walks together every morning.
Okay.
I have another who has helped me set up my business. So it's kind of
Mm.
fun because, again, they're just like, what are you doing here? And how can we help you? And can we go visit the US where you used to live? Could you set us up there?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, one hand washes the other.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and do you guys speak English or do you speak Italian?
So it depends. We speak a bit of both. Of course, their English is not always great. My Italian is not always great. My Italian is more a business Italian because that's what I focused
Okay.
on. So,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's a lot of hand gestures. Thank goodness for the Italians and the hand gestures because we get through it. We get through it.
Okay. Yeah. Did you speak Italian before you arrived?
No, so as a child, my grandparents and my mom spoke Sicilian. And so it's a totally separate language. It's not a dialect.
Ah,
It's a
okay.
different language. And so when I arrived, I knew some Spanish and I knew some Sicilian,
Mhm.
but I didn't know that I knew Sicilian. I thought it was Italian. Being a dumb American, I was like,
Oh, sure,
and
sure.
so I'm in the bakery and I'm ordering a couple things, and I saw these cookies that my grandma used to make, and I'm like, oh, I want the
Mhm.
giugiolenas. And she looked at me and she's like, how? No, those are sesamos. And I'm like, sesamos? And she said, she explained to me that I was asking for something in
Uh-huh.
Sicilian. She's like, how do you know Sicilian? I'm like, I don't know. It's just a
Ah,
word that I knew, these are just things that I knew. So I
yeah.
had to go back and I had to start learning Italian, and it's a work in progress for sure.
So is it very different?
No, so, well, Sicilian to Italian is very different because Sicilian it's oh my gosh, what is it called? Brutal Latin, something, but it's a Latin-based language, but it also has a lot of Arabic, a lot of Spanish, some French in it. So
Ah,
it's
okay.
kind of a conglomeration of
Mm-hmm.
languages where,
Okay.
but then Italian, about 60% of Italian words will overlap with English words. So making the jump from English to Italian has been a lot easier than learning Sicilian.
Okay. Ah, okay. But you already knew that Sicilian,
I
so
already knew some childhood Sicilian. Most of my Sicilian
okay.
was limited to, how to cuss somebody out and how to eat
Right.
and how to get food on my
Yeah.
plate. So the important
Yeah, okay.
things.
Well, that's helpful. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Tell you off and bring me
Yes.
some food.
Yeah. Would you say now you are though comfortable in Italian?
I'm comfortable in Italian. I still make a lot of mistakes. It's still a work in progress. I'm only
Sure.
3 years in, and I think it's gonna take a lifetime for this 50-year-old to get
Yeah.
everything down and just get comfortable. To really feel confident.
Yeah, because also, I guess you speak a fair share of English during the day with
I do.
your
I
clients.
do. I do. So my
Yeah.
my mornings, my mornings, if I'm in offices, it's in Italian. Sometimes some offices I bring a translator with me just to make things go smoother because, I know
Yeah.
the government officials, they're busy, so we don't want to waste their time with me struggling.
Right.
So, but my mornings are basically in Italian. My afternoons are at home quiet, either me studying Italian or, maybe watching a movie in Italian. And then in the evenings, it's
Hmm.
all English. So,
I see.
keeping that brain active.
For me, when I first came to the US, I was only surrounded by English speakers. So my English was a lot, I don't know, it just came really natural, really quick.
Nice.
And then like my husband now is German. We talk to the kids in German. So I speak probably 80% the day I speak in German. So I feel like my English 10 years ago was way better than it is now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because
You know?
it's one of those skills you have to keep practicing. And I go back to the US and suddenly my Italian is perfect, but I cannot remember a word in English. It's like my brain is always a
Right.
little bit behind.
Yeah, like for me it's the same. Sometimes like the easiest things they don't come out. I mean, I know it in my head, but they just don't make their way out there. It gets kind of lost in the whatever language jungle in the brain.
Exactly, exactly. It's tough sometimes, and I always feel for my partner is Spanish and he speaks 5 or 6 languages. And so,
Uh-huh.
he spends his day working.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's incredible. So when we lived in China, he spoke Chinese to his colleagues,
Uh-huh.
but his company was German. So if he got on the phone with, corporate office, he was speaking in German. He'd
Uh-huh.
call his parents in Spanish. He'd talk to me in English.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, how are you keeping this straight? My brain hurts. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Well,
he does it,
I
and
mean,
some people it comes
yeah.
easier to than others. But yeah, it's a
Mhm.
struggle for
I
me.
mean, that, phew, yes. That sounds to me also very complicated.
Definitely.
Keep it like even don't mix them up, Just
Yeah, I end up mixing a lot of things. Sometimes there's, a sentence that's half Italian with a couple of Spanish words thrown in just for a little flavor.
yeah. So also make sure the Italians know that you're not that you are from America.
Yes, yes. I am fresh off the boat.
Is there anything that you really miss?
Oh, I was thinking about this earlier today. What I miss sometimes is just drive-throughs. It's really silly.
Oh.
That whole I just want to drive through and grab a Starbucks. I just need a coffee. It's the middle of the afternoon. I don't have time to stop.
Oh
And I'm like,
yeah.
I want that convenience, right? Like, I
Mhm.
miss the convenience things. Target being open, from 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight kind of stuff. Like,
Right.
all that convenience. But I think there's more that I don't miss. But the convenience, you can't
Mhm.
beat it. The U.S. has definitely got it there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the opposite because I roll my eyes at the drive-throughs. It's like, people, why don't you use your legs? You have legs for a reason, you know? But I mean, also, I mean, I get food drive-through. Sure, we have them in Germany as well. Coffee, it's already like, because I mean, it's more like, hey, you go to a cafe to have a nice time, to enjoy your coffee. It's not like a quick thing just to like whatever drown it. And what I still don't get, ATM drive-throughs.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
There's,
I mean, I guess like cash is like not a thing. I mean, cash is like getting less and less anyway, but the ATM drive-through is like, wow,
yeah.
wow, really, people, come on, get out of your car.
I know. I know. And it's funny because here it's even rare to just find an ATM sometimes.
Mm,
Or an ATM machine that works. So you go into the bank and it's funny because I do love that. That's what I love about being here is all of those things that are slow. So I work and I live
mhm,
in a town that's walkable. So, I kind of have a
mhm,
self-imposed rule that if it's within my town, I'm not getting in the car. So, every morning
uh-huh,
it's take a walk and go get my coffee. If I need to go to the bank, I'm going to stop at the bank. I'm going to stop and pick up some fruit on the way. I carry my groceries home. You know, one, I think there's something so mentally freeing about that. That
more social,
it's more
right? Because you
social.
also interact
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah, and I think, it's just so much healthier, both from the mental aspect of being healthier that I'm not stressed, I'm not in traffic, but also I'm walking everywhere. In my old life in the US,
Mhm,
I was lucky if I got 5,000 steps in a day because I would get in the
right.
car, drive to the office, walk into my office, get in the car, drive to lunch, go back, car, 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 car. Here, I walk to the gym. Like, why wouldn't I walk to the gym? Of course, I'm going to exercise. Why would I drive myself to the
Yeah.
gym? Just
Would you describe your lifestyle now healthier?
Oh, absolutely. I've lost 40 pounds without trying.
40.
Yeah, and I eat pasta every day. When I
Mhm.
first got here, I was eating gelato every single evening and starting
I would too.
right. I was starting every morning with a big pastry filled with creme, pistachio cream. So that's where I lose, with pistachio cream or Nutella filled inside. And I was losing weight because
Mhm.
I was walking everywhere. And
Yeah.
I bought an apartment. It's on the fourth floor. And so I'm walking up 4 flights of stairs, taking my dog out all day.
Mhm.
No more just open
Yep.
the back door and let him run through the yard. Now it's I have to participate every time he needs to wee.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
so definitely it's a much healthier lifestyle, but it's also a good chance that I can unplug, not be looking at a screen. I think just there's so
Mhm.
many benefits to that.
Mhm. And is it also much different to the lifestyle in Spain that your partner has?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is because he lives in Barcelona, so he's in a
Oh,
much
okay.
larger city. And
Mhm.
when I'm in Barcelona, I do a lot of walking, but Barcelona is a big city, so there's a lot of things that are a
Yeah.
lot further. So, when we
Yeah.
can, we take public transportation because parking is a pain in the behind. But there's quite a few occasions, I would say, he's driving to work every single day. When I'm there, I'm in the car there at least two, three, 4 times a week. Where when
Okay.
I'm here back in Sicily, I might be in the car once a week, maybe twice a week if it's a busy week.
Do you even have a car?
I do have a car, yes. But my
Yeah.
first my first year, I did not have a car. My first year, I was completely without car, and totally survived, no problem. There's trains, there's buses,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, I could get to bigger cities, I could get to other places and go travel. The airport's 15 minutes from me, so I could easily get there.
Mhm. That's nice. Was your business idea, did you get this right away when you when you came to Italy, or did you just started working as something else,
Yeah.
or?
So when I came to Italy, I had come from China and I had been teaching business management in China. And so obviously I
Mhm.
left that behind. So when I got here, I had no idea what I was going to do. And I happened to meet someone and make a connection, and I ended up working in tech. And so I was working
Ah, okay.
California hours from Spain and Italy.
Uh-huh.
So I was working basically in the middle of the night. I would log on about 6 p.m. and work till about 3 a.m. And
Mhm.
I was working in tech, very, very happy doing that. But in the process of going through my citizenship, there's a lot of different social media groups, and I just started answering questions for people about how to go through
Okay.
this process. And so very organically, over the course of a year, I accidentally started this business. It was never an intention.
Uh-huh.
I had been an entrepreneur since the time I was 19. I opened my first brick and mortar women's clothing boutique when I was 19,
Oh,
and yeah,
sweet.
it was fun. But owning your own business comes with a lot of gains, a lot of positives, but it's also a lot of negatives because you're never really on
Mhm.
vacation, and
No.
so one thing that was really appealing to me was, hey, I was working in tech. I was working for a company out of California. It was great. I had a nice salary. I had vacation time. I had
Mhm.
good balance of hours. And I really loved that. But as this sort of started to grow, I was like getting pulled back into owning a business, which was the one thing that I said when I left the US. I will never own another business. I'm never doing that again. I'm never,
Okay.
and I
Mhm.
fought it for a long time,
Oh, yeah.
until I couldn't fight it anymore.
Okay, so it's like, okay, the people really request
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, we're doing something good. So my background was in fashion. Like I said, I owned women's
Uh-huh.
clothing boutiques, and when I was in my mid 30s, I had the opportunity to go back to university and educate myself on something new. And I wanted to
Mhm.
work, more in social work and something that was giving back, because I felt like, for so
Yeah.
long, fashion was wonderful, but I had kind of reached that point in my life where I wanted to give back. And,
Mhm.
um, so this, in a way, kind of gives me both. I get to live, this beautiful, glamorous lifestyle on a beach, surrounded by mountains in the most beautiful country, beautiful
Mhm.
food. I get to fly around, which is great. But I also get to make an impact in people's lives. I get to help them make a change in their life for the positive. So I get to use that social
Mhm.
work education in that way. So for me, this kind of bridges those two things together. And then,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
and it's worked out great because then, I learned everything. I learned so much when I was working in tech that I'm able to apply to this. So that big toolkit now gets put to use too. So
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
was it
totally.
was a long way here, but I think every step I took was leading me to this path.
And it sounds like you're really enjoying it.
I love it. I love it. I get to meet interesting people.
Uh-huh.
I talk to probably three or four different potential clients every day. I'm relocating people from different parts of the world, different parts of their life. Some are families, some are singles. Um, some are married, divorced, widowed. So I get to meet so many different people, and then you throw into that all of the new Italians that I get to meet. And
Right.
by living in a beach town, my town is great because there's a lot of Germans actually that own property in my town,
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of Polish. And then with the Ukrainian war,
Ukrainians.
we have now Ukrainians, which is
Mhm.
fantastic because again, it's just,
Yeah.
I live in this really cool multicultural society, and everybody's integrating and coming at different times for different reasons. So I love, that brings me back to my old retail days and my days of working in fashion, of just working with the public and working with so many diverse personalities and people and situations.
Is there anything that you would recommend to people who gonna move to Italy?
I think, be prepared to leave your expectations behind. Leave your old lifestyle behind. You're moving somewhere new. And, I'm sure you probably went through this too, right? Coming from Germany to America, there's going to be changes and work on embracing those changes and give yourself some grace. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process. And there's
Yeah.
going to be days where you're
Yeah.
just like, what did I do? Like, this is the most maddening thing ever. And then other days you're like, I can't imagine why I didn't do this 20 years earlier. So it's,
Okay. Did did you ever have this? Why did I do
oh,
this?
of course,
Like,
of course.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And both in Shanghai and in Barcelona and here, there's always those days that come up that I'm just like, oh, it'd be so much easier if I could just walk into the office and, talk to colleagues in a language I'm comfortable with customs
Right.
and culture that I'm familiar with. Yeah, and just knowing the process of how to get things done. I don't know. I haven't lived in Germany, but Italian bureaucracy like today, sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 tries to get one silly thing done. It's
Oh, yeah. I feel German bureaucracy is famous for never ending. It's too much. You need like a permit for this, you need paper for this, you need paper for this. It's
yeah.
staggering.
Yes, yes. And I think, that's one of the things I miss is the US is much more lackadaisical at that.
Yeah.
No, you don't need a paper for that. You're fine. I have somebody right
Yeah.
now who she decided to change one letter in her name. And I said, okay, I need the court order that made that legal name change. She's like, what court order? The town just told me it was fine. I could call myself whatever I wanted. I'm like, oh, no.
You're not here.
You're like, you're making my Italian brain explode. No.
So much more work for you.
Yes, yes. I'm like, that was easy for you back there, but now here I have a whole mess.
Sorry, you have to change your name back.
Yes, yes, that's what we're working on is you either have to change your name
But
back or
that's,
get it legal in the US and then come here. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so yeah, there's definitely days where I'm like, oh, I just wish I was back, but I would say those days are very few in comparison to the days I'm really happy that
uh-huh.
I'm here.
And they're probably also getting less. If you accustom more and more, you probably have those days not as often anymore.
Yeah, I would say, maybe once every 5, 6, 7 months. I'm just like, oh God, I wish I was
Uh-huh.
just back at home. And then, all
Okay.
I have to do is flip on the news and read something about American news, and I'm like, oh nope, I'm happy where I'm at. I'll deal with it.
Okay. Yeah. And another question I have is how do you make friends, or how did you make your friends?
Oh, that is always kind of interesting, right? So I got very lucky that when I came here, I met this man who was bilingual and he dealt with a lot of Americans and he took me under his wing.
Hmm.
And so I
Oh,
I
okay.
sort of had my Sicilian mentor. He's my Sicilian
Hmm.
father. Sometimes my Sicilian
Hmm.
father, sometimes my Sicilian boyfriend, right? Like he introduced me to people,
Okay.
he made connections for me, and that really started opening doors for me. Um, and then, from there, outside of that, getting into different expat groups, different Facebook groups. Like right now, I'm involved with an organization called Girls Gone International, and we're going to start a chapter here in Palermo to help other expats, other female
Hmm.
expats or identifying as female expats, meet other people because it can be hard. This can be in some ways kind of a closed society.
Yeah.
Just like when I was in China. So it takes time.
Hmm.
And so we have to rely on our expat bubble friends, to
Yeah.
start. And it's not in my nature to necessarily put myself out there, even though I've always worked in a very
Hmm.
public space. My personal life
Hmm.
has always been a little more private. So now I'm having to reverse that. And I'm having to put myself out
Hmm.
there and go to different expat, lunches or museum visits and things like that
Right.
with a bunch of strangers and have to have those awkward conversations. And it's a
Right.
challenge.
Uh-huh.
It's a challenge, right? I
Yes,
mean, I would
to
imagine,
find that right person,
yeah, I would,
that you connect with. Yeah.
yeah, not working in a traditional workplace. I don't have coworkers. And so
Right.
that's made a difference. I mean, I would imagine, I know from my friends that moved to the US, and you probably experienced this too. You're coming from Germany. It probably, took some time to make some friends and find your
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, I remember like in the first 6 months I was like, I'm so bored. Like I don't want to do like there are so many things I can do, but I don't have anybody I can do them with,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like I don't know, I wish I would be back home with my friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you miss those
Mm,
friends and, thank goodness
yeah.
for, Zoom and FaceTime and all of the other different ways we can communicate. But there's still nothing like having somebody in person and having that actual
Right,
connection.
exactly. To have somebody to go on a walk with, to have a coffee with, something like that. That's different.
Yeah.
I mean, though, but I'm really glad about like all these WhatsApp, whatever, FaceTime things that are so much easier nowadays.
Yeah.
But still, like you need friends that are present right next to you too.
Exactly, exactly. I'm not super excited about taking my FaceTime friends to a museum visit with me, right?
Right,
It's
right, right. It's like,
like,
oh yeah, look at this picture.
here you go. Oh, and now I'm going to have a glass of Prosecco. Would you like to see my salmon I'm going to eat today?
Yeah, that does not work.
It just does not translate, right? So yeah, I
Mhm.
think it takes time. And I think, for those of us that become expats, I mean, there's something inside of us that, makes us, a little bit of an oddball in the way that we're willing to take
Mhm.
that risk and we're going to go through those uncomfortable moments. And if we can
Yeah.
get through those uncomfortable moments, something beautiful can come out of it on the other end.
Yeah. Yes. And also you have your cousins there.
Yes, yes. And, I mean, I would say it took me about a year and a half before I met them. And,
Huh?
and they've been wonderful. And they're like, oh, let me introduce you to this person. And, we're related to this person and that
Yeah.
person. Like, it turns out that the manager of my hairdressing salon, she's like, we were talking today and she said, oh yeah, Elisa told me about this and, she got it for me from America and it turns out we're related. And I'm like,
Oh, that's so
like
funny.
this is
Yeah.
so crazy. You just walk
But
in.
when you reached out to them, I imagine you
Yeah.
reached out to them first. What was their reaction?
They were kind of in shock. They're like, and who are you and how are we related?
Yeah. It's like, is this a scam?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so, that great grandfather that was born like 200 years ago, so
Yeah.
he had a brother who had a cousin who had a neighbor.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I imagined. It's like, oh God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it gets easier each time you do it. And I think, that was the beauty of my time in China was that really took me out of that American mindset and that shell of having friends that I had grown up with, having friends that I had been friends with since I was in
Hmm.
childhood. As an adult now,
Hmm.
suddenly I had to learn how to make friends. Otherwise I was going to be very lonely.
Yeah.
And so that was my bridge. That was the place I went to learn. And then it got
Hmm.
easier, each time I moved.
Yeah. And have you been back to the US?
I go back to the US usually like twice a year. So
Okay.
yeah, so I get back to the US. My children are there. I have two grown children. I have two grandchildren.
Uh-huh.
And so I go back to the US to see them and my parents. But this year we're going to try it differently. Everybody's going to come here. So my parents and my daughter are
Nice.
coming for a month, and they're going to spend some time
Hmm.
here. And then hopefully my son and his children and wife will come later in the year and spend some time. So
Nice.
yeah, so, we're trying to mix it up. We're trying to mix it up. And hopefully my
Hmm.
friends, as their lives kind of open up a little bit. I have one friend we're going to meet in Turkey for July and have some travel
Uh-huh.
time there and, you know,
Nice.
just relax and enjoy each other in a different place.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really nice to hear. I think we're also coming to an end.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Thank you for participating on our podcast, and it's super interesting what you had to say.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
That was Jennifer in Italy. And if you are actually thinking about moving to Italy because your ancestors are from there and you are a US citizen, then you should definitely check out her website. It's called italiancitizenshipconcierge.com, and you can find it also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and also here in the show notes. And then, as always, if you really like this podcast, then please give it a 5-star review wherever you listen to this show, so it makes it easier for other people to find. And so maybe I can grow an audience, which I'm really hoping I can. So, and if you are also another person who moved abroad and want to tell me your story, then please reach out to me. It's worldscollide123pod@gmail.com, or you can also find me on Instagram. It's worldscollidepod, just one word all together, and find me there, and yeah, write me a line. And that was all I have to say for this week. I hope you tune in again next week. Until then, ciao.